This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hey, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. I got an email from Sutro yesterday, and it's one of those things where it's kind of sad to see this happen, but they have announced that as of October 31st, they're no longer going to function, and that is their shutdown date. So I'm going to go over some things about the Sutro Smart Monitor and why it may not have been successful. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. So the email reads, we're ready to let you know that Sutro Inc. will be ceasing its operations. This has been not an easy decision. While we made every effort to grow and sustain the business, we were unable to gain the traction required to continue. Unfortunately, we have incurred substantial losses, and we can no longer fund these losses. As a result, the Sutro app and product will no longer function after October 31st, 2025 shutdown date. At that point, the service will no longer be available. Since the product depends on the app to function, we recommend responsibly recycling it through an electronic recycling service after the shutdown date. And then they go on to say that they're actually working in conjunction with Water Guru, which is another smart monitor that, by the way, is really good. They're giving you a 40% discount if you switch over to Water Guru from the Sutro Smart Monitor. Now, they did mention loss of income, and if you look them up, you can see that they have lost a pretty substantial amount of money. I'm going here and I'm looking back. So in quarter 4 of 2024, they lost $48 million. And then in the second quarter of 2025, they brought that down to an $11.5 million loss. But of course, if you're losing money, you can't stay in business. That's just the bottom line. And if you're losing millions and millions of dollars, it's something that can't be sustained. I think the product failure is actually an overall reflection of the failure of the smart monitor sector. It's interesting that you would think that people would want to have a device that tells them their free chlorine, pH, and alkalinity every day consistently. But in reality, I think that segment of the market is actually pretty small. It's not a huge market that they can pull from. I'm not exactly sure, the device cost, and I had the device myself. So the cost of the device and the subscription was probably a point that kind of hurt them a little bit. It was pretty expensive to use the Sutro. All of their current pricing has been pulled off the line, and on their site it says that they don't have any Sutros in stock due to tariffs, and they'll have some in stock soon. But the email is pretty clear that they're actually shutting down their services. It's really one of the things where it was kind of expensive. It was $4.99 initially for the basic unit, and then $29 per month. And then if you wanted the premium, it was $500 initially, and then $39 a month. And basically for this, you would get pH, free chlorine or bromine, total alkalinity, and temperature 3 times per day. You would have the hub monitor and 2 rechargeable batteries. The app, of course, on-demand cartridges that were shipped every month, and then expert recommendations based on your chemicals. And for the premium, you would also have VIP support, weekly water health reports, monthly Pool Pro consultation requested by you, and detailed historical graphs. And that's quite a lot of money for anyone just to get those 3 readings 3 times a day, I should say. And in reality, do you really need to test your pool water that often? Probably not, but that's how they had it set up. It may have been a little overcomplicated for a smart monitor. There were a lot of things you had to actually do to activate it and get it working. A lot of technical issues. If you look at the Amazon reviews, there's a lot of 1-star reviews about how it was really hard to set up, and the device can be complicated to set up. And then there is the aspect of it not really being completely user-friendly. What I mean by this is that you had to go out and change the cartridge in the device, and it was a little bit complicated to change the cartridge in a way, and it's something that required some skill and, of course, time to go out there and change that cartridge. And it's something that if you have a device that you're paying for that's a smart monitor, it should be a little bit easier to get it set up every month or every 2 months when you needed to change out the cartridge. The Water Guru, of course, is a lot easier. It's just a snap-in cartridge that you put in there, and it works pretty effectively as well. I think another thing was the accuracy. People were reporting inaccurate testing of the device. They used reagents, and I thought the reagent tester was actually the most accurate of these smart devices. Of course, the Water Guru uses kind of like a test strip cartridge, and I find it to be fairly accurate. But really, I think it's something that how accurate is the water testing in a certain area of the pool. And it's one of those kind of things where you're kind of splitting hairs in some ways, unless, of course, the reading is extremely way off. You're not going to get a lot of the same test results. I've done this many times with the Spin Touch, with the Pool Lab, where I'm trying to duplicate the exact result from testing it and matching it to even the same device or another device. And it's just hard to get that match because there are just so many variables out there. Now, granted, if you're doing a test with a Taylor test kit, you're getting 7.6 for the pH, and maybe the Sutro is saying it's 8.2 or whatever, then there's definitely something wrong with the reading. It's off way too much. It's not within a margin of error. So that's another thing that was hard to verify, is like, how accurate is this actually, are the readings that it's actually. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Giving. They did have some technical issues. This probably led to some of the losses and failure. And you can't say that it's a small market of consumers that caused the problem, because if the product was robust without the technical problems, it definitely would have persisted. There's a lot of complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau regarding connectivity and calibration of the device. The customer service just wasn't robust enough to really help out. And I think it's just the overall fact that there just wasn't enough trust in the product with the residential pool service segment. And that's probably what's happening to a lot of smart monitors, is that there's still a lack of awareness in how these devices work and the complexity. I tried to get my dad using the Fin when it first came out, and he had so much trouble using that device. It kept on giving him, water unsafe readings, and so he just kind of threw it in the trash, basically, and didn't want to use the smart monitor. So there is that factor that the consumer market for that is a small segment of people that need to kind of be more on the technical, nerdy side for this to work effectively. And it's probably not for just the general consumer. Like my dad in particular, he's in his 70s, and something like that is very frustrating to someone who can't really, figure out things on that technical level. There's also built-in limitations to the device, and granted that the reagent can only be read to 5 parts per million of free chlorine, it's not super effective in a lot of pools where you really want to know if the free chlorine is 8 or 9 or 10, or, one of those things where if you're limited to 5 parts per million, you just don't know what your true free chlorine level is. So that, on the technical side, is a problem. And also the fact that, to be honest with you, you're paying this much money for a device that just gives you free chlorine, pH, and alkalinity, and it's not giving you cyanuric acid, it's not giving you the calcium hardness, it's not giving you, any kind of phosphate readings or salinity readings. I mean, I know I'm being unrealistic here. It's a smart device to have all of those readings, but truly, I think a smart device should give you a lot of readings that you could utilize, especially for the LSI. Of course, temperature is there, but you really do need to know your conditioner level of your pool, the calcium hardness of the pool, and in some respects, the salinity level if you have a salt pool, and the phosphate levels. I think these are all important readings that I don't think any smart device can actually combine all of these at this point. That can be brought to the market. So you have the price point, the limitation of the readings, and then the actual device, the kind of large green device sitting in your pool. Some people didn't like that. The Water Guru has a distinct advantage because you can actually replace your skimmer lid with it, and it goes into the skimmer. So it definitely is more aesthetic in that way around your pool than the Sutro was. And of course, again, if you have a product that has failures and you don't address it with the customers properly, you're going to have problems selling that product because bad reviews are going to hurt you. On Amazon, they're at 29% 1 star, and that's pretty much a killer for any product that has reviews of that kind of negative slant. Ironically, the Water Guru, the device that Sutro is kind of pushing you towards, also has 29% negative 1-star reviews on Amazon as well. And again, a lot of this has to do with accuracy, things of that nature, and failures of the components. It's something that happens with anything that's electronic. It's something also to be aware of with the price point of these products. You're paying a lot of money for something, especially with the tariffs and everything. Everything has gone up, of course, in cost. And you're paying a lot of money for a product that you may find to be not as accurate as just doing a test strip or using a tailored test kit, or even using a photometer like the Pool Lab 2.0 or the Lamont Color Q Pro 7 2X. These are all great testers as well. The smart monitor that actually has probably the best reviews is actually the Crystal Smart Water Monitor, which ironically was the parent company of Finn that was sold to Hayward, and then after a certain period of time they relaunched it by themselves again and called it the Crystal Smart Water Monitor. And this one's actually pretty good with 20 1-star reviews and 61 5-star reviews. So it definitely has better reviews. The Water Guru is at 40 1-star, and then the Sutro, let me get back here, the Sutro had 53 5-star reviews. So it's one of those things where anything electronic of this nature that's reading chemicals in the pool, it's going to have some variation of, yes, this product is great because all the readings are accurate, or no, this product is no good because I can't get an accurate reading of it, or I can't connect it to the app. All these things are going to bring down that product. I can tell you from using these products that I thought the Sutro was particularly accurate, of course limited with the readings. The Water Guru seems to be very accurate as well. And then if you of course have it set correctly where it's getting the reading when the pool is running. And then the Crystal Water Monitor I found to be very accurate, in fact, because it has a pretty robust probe that goes in the pool and gets the ORP and pH reading in the pool. And that's the device that I thought was, out of these, the most accurate. But again, you're dealing with price points of $450 for the Crystal Water Monitor, and then the Water Guru is close to $400 now for that particular device. And all of these are what I would consider to be premium items for the do-it-yourself homeowners, or even the pool pro that wants to monitor a customer's pool. And it's much more expensive than, say, a region test kit like the Taylor test kit. For instance, if you get the Taylor K2005 test kit. It's about, right now it's actually only $60 on Amazon. And granted, you have to go out there and physically use the reagents to test the water, but it does do free chlorine, total chlorine, which is an important reading, by the way, your pH level. It also, you can do your acid and base demand if you wanted to go through all the trouble of doing that. And then using the watergram, and there's actually a booklet too that helps you with that. Total alkalinity, you can use apps, by the way, to get your acid and base demand as well. Total alkalinity, calcium hardness, and cyanuric acid. And these are the basic parameters you're going to need to test your pool water. And it's something that I think a lot of people just like using a tailored test kit to get their readings and doing it once a week. And there really isn't a need for a lot of people to have the readings 3 or 4 times a day. Maybe if you had if you're giving swim lessons or something, or if you needed to make sure, if you're kind of really paranoid and wanted to make sure your water was safe all the time, you would need something that gives you the reading 3 times a day like the Sutro did. But in most cases, most homeowners can do the water testing once or twice a week with a simple reagent test kit that costs only $60. Now, I'm not saying that smart water monitors are not good and they don't work. I reviewed them all and I know that they actually do work. And I do like the Crystal Water Monitor, and I thought the Water Guru was actually a pretty decent smart monitor as well. And I did like the Sutro. I'm kind of sad to see it go because I had high hopes for this one really catching on because it uses those reagents, which are something that makes it unique and very accurate. I thought reagents were much more accurate than the kind of test strips or the cartridge type testing. And of course, the probe that you use in other smart monitors just gets the ORP, and you're going to have to extrapolate the free chlorine from that. But I think it is a niche market where there isn't a lot of consumers that are looking for this device. And since it is such a small market, the product has to be cost effective for the manufacturer and cost effective for the consumer for it to work. And a small market like this requires both to work properly, the price of manufacturing it and the price to consumer, for it to be even remotely successful. You may not know this, but actually Florida does have a smart monitor. It's called the Blue Riot, and it is on the market. They just haven't pushed it. It does pH and ORP, and of course salinity or conductivity and water temperature. However, the price point, I'm looking here online for it, and the price point is not too pretty. You have, Farmer Pool and Spa, $6.99, Pool Cleaning Parts, $5.99, and then DK Hardware has it for $8.69. So it's on the market, but again, it's one of those things where I think the price point has to match what the consumer is looking for in a smart water monitor. And for something priced at $700, I don't think they're going to sell too many of these things because the consumer, again, if you're looking at testing your pool water, test strips are a really affordable option. The reagent test kits are very affordable. And, the Blue Riot, you spend $400 more and you can get yourself a Lamont Spin Touch that does, 10 test factors in 1 minute just for a little bit more money than this particular device. So again, it's about the cost of the device, the technical aspect of it with certain consumers that can't really manage it or operate it, and then the customer support from these manufacturers. So I think for a product to be successful, and Sutro failed in a few of those categories. I like the people there. They're a great bunch of people that started the company, but I think those failures ultimately will bring down any company in any industry. If the product is not priced correctly for the market or segment you're trying to sell it to, if there's technical difficulties that can't be overcome by the consumers, you don't have the tech support also, and there's other competing products that are less expensive in the market that people are drawn towards versus spending the money for the high-priced smart monitor, then you're up against, again, another avenue. You can't really sell your product at a certain price if you have competing products at a lower price that consumers can easily use, and it's not rocket science to use a reagent test kit, really. And if you are looking for a parallel, look at Tesla trying to break into the market in China. China has an electric car company called BYD, and they actually make models that are priced below $10,000, believe it or not, and the cheapest Model 3 starts at $32,000. So in China, why would you buy a Tesla when you can buy a BYD? And by the way, they're probably never going to come to America because it would really, hurt Tesla and hurt other automakers to have an electric car that costs $10,000. It's pretty crazy. But Tesla cannot get any traction in China because basically they have electric cars that are priced a lot cheaper. And I think if you want to correlate that with the smart water monitors, tailored test kit for $60, then you get some reagents maybe after a few months if you're a homeowner, or a year, test strips, whatever you're looking at for the season. And by the way, this is another factor, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, is that the pool season is not really a long season and is something that is affecting these smart water monitors as well. Here in California, maybe from April through October is our pool season. Back east or at the Midwest, even less, maybe 3 months. And in Florida, yes, it's probably all year round, basically. But in most other states, we do have seasons, and 6 to 7 months is the maximum. And then you really don't do a lot of water testing in the cold weather months. And so this is also another drawback with the pool industry, is that we're very seasonal, and a product, for it to be robust, has to kind of make all its profit during that season. And that's why everything in the pool industry costs so much money to begin with, because the factor, or the price factor, is part of the short season. And they charge a lot more because they need to make all their money in 6 months versus other products that, like dish soap or laundry detergent or any kind of consumer product that you're always going to do laundry all year round. At least I do. And it's something that doesn't get affected by a seasonal kind of fluctuation. Whereas in the pool industry, products are very seasonal, and it's something that also negatively affects these kind of niche markets, like having a water tester that costs $500. You can only use it for maximum 6 months here in California, maybe 3 months back east. And it doesn't really equate for a lot of consumers to have a product that you only use for half the year. It is sad to see the Sutro Smart Water Monitor go, but there were a lot of factors, as I've discussed here, that kind of contributed to the failure of the product in the pool smart water monitoring segment. If you're looking for other podcasts, you can find those by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, there's a podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts for you there as well. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.